Elegance versus power. Splendor versus strength. Theirs is the ultimate contrast in style. Their past battles have defined their sport. For future generations, their contests will be inspirational. Long after their careers are over, they're two of the finest athletes to ever grace a tennis court. And theirs is a classic rivalry.
It's one of those moments you're happy you were part of.
Everybody all the time talking about that final.
It was a match which encapsulated their rivalry. On July the 5th, 2008, Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal contested the men's singles final at Wimbledon, and their titanic 7-hour clash eclipsed anything the sport had ever seen.
I was anticipating a great match. I didn't expect the clash that ended up taking place.
2 sets down for me, 2 sets up for me.
Saved match point in the 4th.
The 5th set was, I think, one of the more emotional sets that I played in my career.
Got the better of me. He deserved it.
Wimbledon always was my dream, so it was unforgettable.
By 9:30 that evening, the tennis world was coming to terms with what it had just witnessed. One of the all-time great matches had elevated a simple tennis rivalry to something much more. A sporting rivalry to match any other. Born just outside Basel in Switzerland in 1981, Roger Federer saw his future from an early age.
I was fooling around back in the day, you know, with my friends playing on grass and, you know, on a lawn somewhere in a backyard of a house and, you know, saying, oh, I've won Wimbledon, you know, and then same in practice over and over again. But is it real or is it just a dream?
We met when we were about 7, 8 years old, I think. And well, I grew up really downtown. He actually was a bit uptown, so you know, the places where we met was our tennis club.
He was just a normal young boy who liked to have fun on the court, in the training, and in the matches he was very eager. So he always wanted to be, from the first day, he wanted to be #1 in the world.
And when he started to work more serious and work a lot also physically and mentally, he all of a sudden then surprised everybody.
Federer was a natural. At 16, he became junior Wimbledon champion, beating Georgia's Irakli Labadze in straight sets. It was the beginning of a love affair with the home of tennis, which would last more than 15 years.
I do remember very vividly the first time I saw him. And I actually wrote a piece in the paper I worked for at the time saying that I tipped him for stardom. You just get a sense. It was his personality, it was his poise, it was his game, just everything about him. You just got to feel that something very special was there.
The first memories I have of Roger are as a junior. We played in many tournaments together. He was playing very well. He'd already won junior Wimbledon, and he was a lad who had a lot of potential.
In 2001, Federer returned to Wimbledon as a professional. In the 4th round, he faced the current holder and 7-time champion, Pete Sampras. Federer would cause one of the championship's biggest ever upsets.
His match against Pete at Wimbledon in 2001 was the real turning point. In a sense, it was Pete's demise as a force to be reckoned with at the very, very highest level, and an announcement of Roger's great talent on the court, where really the baton was handed from one to the other.
Sampras, for so long the sport's dominant force, won just one more match at Wimbledon. Tennis was on the lookout for his successor, and Roger Federer fitted the bill. The 2003 Wimbledon final saw him face Australian Mark Philippoussis.
I remember losing in Wimbledon in 2002 in the first round, and also at the French Open in the first round in 2002. So I've had a couple of really depressing losses like that, and then, you know, questions were starting to be asked.
There was a thought that maybe this would be the breakthrough for Philippoussis, but really Roger negated all his strengths.
Well, it was not only just my first Wimbledon title, but my first Grand Slam title overall, and it happened in a moment where I really needed it. Thanks to everybody. Oh, it's great!
Federer won 3 of the 4 Grand Slams in 2004, including a second consecutive Wimbledon title against Andy Roddick. He was now indisputably the world's best player.
It's interesting, actually. If you look at Roger, you'll say, okay, does he have the best serve in the world? No. Does he have the best forehand in the world? No. Does he have the best backhand in the world? No. Does he have the best volleys in the world? Well, no. But he is, everything is probably in the top 3, you know, top 4 of players, maybe of all time. So you put that all together and you've got one unbelievably good player.
I play against all of them, so I can say that Federer, he has all-around game, and he's the most complete player of all of them. So I think it's Pete. He was good at his game. Agassi at his game, and Federer, he has both of it. Sampras and Agassi. So which is, you can't get any better than that.
That's one of the most amazing things about him, is when you speak to past greats of this game, John McEnroe, Pat Cash, Boris Becker, you know, one thing they all say is that he's the most complete player they've ever seen.
The common school of thought was that there was no one to touch him. But the experts were wrong.
I love the sport in general, no? But when I was a kid, I played a lot of football, a lot of tennis, and I was on the street all the day, running, playing with my friends. You know, Mallorca it's a very quiet place, you know, sometimes, and we are able to go to the street and play all the afternoon there.
Rafael Nadal was born in Mallorca in 1986, where the warm climate meant much of his childhood was spent outdoors. And playing sport came naturally. Tennis was one interest, football another.
For a kid, I think it's easier to play football because you play with friends, you play like a team. So when you are 9 years old, 10 years old, 11 years old, that's probably more fun. At that age, I won the World Championship of tennis, so everything conduced me to the tennis world.
Under the guidance of his coach, his uncle Tony, the young Spaniard began to work his way to the top. Strong, athletic and aggressive, Nadal was suited to playing from the baseline, meaning clay courts would complement his game more than any other surface. In 2005, he defeated Federer in the French Open semi-final, their first Grand Slam meeting, before beating Mariano Puerta in 4 sets. His first Grand Slam title at the first time of asking.
When you win the first Grand Slam, it's like you take, you know, you relax a little bit, no? Because all my life working hard to arrive to win something like that, and finally you did. So you cannot believe at the beginning because you say, well, nothing more important I can win right now. Just finally all my career, all my work since I was a kid makes sense now.
It was a moment repeated in 2006 as Nadal defended his French title. But for Federer, this was a first loss in a Grand Slam final.
The interest for tennis around the world was sparked up by this young Spanish kid coming in.
So perhaps he did need someone to come along and give him a little bit of a jolt.
Roger was so good that he was in a league of his own and dominating too much.
Rafa wore that cut-off T-shirt type top and looked like a matador and came along on the scene and really played an explosive game that we'd never seen the like of before.
It's a healthy and very good rivalry. And it's interesting for the fans and for us players because they have two totally different styles.
Left v right, calm v the storm. And it was, in a sense, the perfect match against Federer's grace and Nadal's great strength.
That same summer, the pair met again in the Wimbledon final.
I came to the finals. I wasn't too surprised to see Nadal in the finals, and we just played in the French Open finals. For me, it was my first time in the French Open finals against each other, and I played actually pretty good in that final, but still ended up losing. So I was actually very happy to finally I got him on grass and not always have to play him on clay. And I started very, very well. I won the first set 6-love, and that against, you know, your biggest rival is the best start you could get. And I kind of actually played all the way through very well and served out the game very nicely.
Despite his dominance on the clay of Roland Garros, on the grass, Nadal simply had no answer to his rival, who took his 4th consecutive Wimbledon title. And the following year saw the cycle repeated. Nadal won in Paris. Whilst Federer won in London. There was nothing to separate the two, though on grass, Nadal was edging ever closer.
I think Rafa was very disappointed, more than I've ever seen him, I think, at any match, losing the 2007 final. I really think that he thought he was going to win. He got it all together. He knew how to play on grass. He devoted a lot of time to playing on grass. And that was a major disappointment to him not to win that 2007 final.
You've got to match them on different surfaces, which is one of the great things about tennis, is the variety of surfaces that we have out there. So clearly Rafa has dominated on the clay, and you know, Roger's had to find ways potentially of trying to sort of match him on that particular surface. Nadal's obviously got to get to Wimbledon and figure out a way of winning that. One of the qualities, again, of all great players is they figure it out.
In 2008, Nadal finally did figure it out. Following his 4th straight French Open win, yet again against Federer, the two met in the Wimbledon final for the 3rd consecutive year. The world #1 versus the world #2. Winners of 14 of the previous 16 Grand Slams. Federer was aiming for a record 6th consecutive Wimbledon title. Nadal was looking for his first.
There was so much on the line.
It's one of the unforgettable experiences in my life.
Early on, Nadal's explosive power was too much, even for Federer. He took the first set 6-4. And the second set by the same score.
You were waiting for Roger in that 2008 final to play in the style that you'd become accustomed to take the game a little bit more to Rafa, and he did.
A 3rd set tiebreak went Federer's way. But a tiebreak in the 4th saw Nadal just 1 point away from his dream victory.
I came back from 2-love, saved match point in the 4th.
Federer won the tiebreak, 2 sets all, and the world was witnessing a classic.
If you'd done a straw poll on centre court that day at the end of the 4th set, 90% of the people would have said, well, they think Federer will go on to win. But you have to remember that throughout his entire career, Nadal's had this capacity to dig deeper than I think than anyone I've ever seen.
A rain delay did nothing to dampen the drama. The 5th and final set was even more dramatic.
After losing 2 finals in a row in Wimbledon, 2006, 2007, was that moment for me to try to win finally. Always was my dream, so was unforgettable. Almost every point from that last points, and was probably one of the biggest wins in my career.
He deserved it. He was going to win Wimbledon anyways at some point, but it was a great run for him to win that one.
I think quite rightly that is known, certainly in my time, as the greatest tennis match I've ever seen because of where it ended. It ended, in almost total darkness at almost 9:30 at night. Incredible scenes, and Nadal finally beating Federer at Wimbledon in the final, having been 2 sets up and then losing sets 3 and 4 and coming back to win the 5th, has to go down as his greatest of all triumphs.
There was no time to draw breath. The rivalry continued unabated as another classic final was played out at the 2009 Australian Open. With 3 Australian titles to his name, Federer was again the favourite. Nadal was searching for his first hard-court Grand Slam title.
I'd never seen him quite so tearful after losing a match. And actually Rafa had his arm round Roger's shoulder, and I think he realised it was so momentous, the win for him, but he almost, at that stage, he felt more for having beaten Federer than actually his own victory.
The wheel was turning, no longer dominant just on clay. In only 6 months, Nadal had beaten Federer on grass and on hard court. He was now the sport's dominant force.
Well, Nadal has started off as basically a kid with unbelievable athleticism and big, heavy topspin shots. His serve was a weakness, his volleys were a weakness, any movement forward was weak, and he's just improved that out of sight.
Rafa had to improve parts of his game to improve results on other surfaces, which he'd previously found harder. Today, he's a player who wins everywhere. He's been world #1. He's on the top of his game, and he's capable of winning on surfaces which he found a bit harder to do in the past.
He's just become a better and better player, and with that athleticism and, of course, all the experience and determination that goes with it, he's almost impossible to beat.
Federer, so used to having things his own way, was struggling to come to terms with his fiercest rival. That Australian Open final of 2009 was their 19th meeting. Federer had won just 6.
The most difficult element I think Roger has found against Rafa is that there's no one who gets the spin or the height or the kind of whip on the ball that Nadal gets. Because where you want the ball to come at a certain height, it's coming up here, or it's coming down there, or it's spinning away from you so much that you can't get enough on your single-handed backhand to get the ball deep enough to worry Nadal.
But Federer... Injury forced Nadal to withdraw from Wimbledon, clearing the way for Federer to chase his 6th title, 1 short of Pete Sampras's record. The victory would also break the American's record of 14 Grand Slams. Federer faced Andy Roddick once again.
Here I am in 2009 at, 10-all in the 5th against Roddick, not having had a chance to sort of break Andy yet. And, I didn't want to lose back-to-back Wimbledon finals in an epic. One of those big moments, having Pete Sampras sitting there, Bjorn Borg, I think, was there as well, John McEnroe, Rod Laver, I think the whole bunch was there, which was just, for me, an incredible honour to be playing, in that moment and all the great legends being present.
By 2012, 2 had become 3. The Serbian Novak Djokovic had won 10 tournaments the previous year, leaving Federer and Nadal in his wake. Federer was now in his 30s. Nadal was struggling with injury. Yet their sights remained fixed on the Grand Slam titles. First, Nadal triumphed in Paris for the 7th time, beating Djokovic in 4 sets.
Rafa had been having trouble with his knees, and there was just the sheer relief. I mean, he actually ran into the stands and climbed up, threw himself at everybody in his box, and there was just this sense of, I really don't believe I've done this. There was this sense of utter relief that he'd won that, because I think at that stage his mind was such, I'm not sure I can ever win one of these again.
Then Federer faced Andy Murray in the Wimbledon final, 2.5 years since he last won a Grand Slam title.
I played probably one of the best matches of my life, I guess, especially at the back end of the match. I feel very fortunate that I was part of such a great story again. I had my kids, you know, seeing me from the stands, clapping to me when I walked past. It was the Wimbledon trophy. That's not a vision I ever had in my wildest dreams, that my family would see me win Wimbledon. And here I am enjoying this moment. It was very emotional and very strong. But I'm happy I had that opportunity, and I look back with incredible memories on that incredible day.
Despite the Spaniard's absence, Federer's victory highlighted his rivalry with Nadal. Both were still battling for the biggest titles. And Federer was once again the world #1, a position he'd now occupied for 287 weeks, more than twice as long as Nadal.
I think Roger's one of those who really believes that being #1 is very, very special indeed. Who would ever have thought anyone would overtake Sampras's total? And now Roger's, what is it, 40 weeks more? I mean, it's just sensational, really. Incredible.
2014 saw Nadal defeat Federer in the semi-final of the Australian Open, his 23rd victory over his old adversary. Federer has won 10 times. But this great rivalry has always been about much more than just numbers.
He wants to beat him and he wants to beat him. That's been the cornerstone of the rivalry. I think you are friends up to a point, and then friendship has to stop, and you actually have to don your tennis clothes and go out there and behave like an animal because you want to beat the other guy.
That's also the other thing that drives both Rafa and Roger, is that motivation, that winning mentality, that desire to get out there and win at all costs.
And my toughest opponent is obviously Rafael Nadal. I've played against him, I think, over 20 times.
It was a good rivalry because it was always #1 against #2, #2 against #1.
I really came out on top many times when it really, really mattered.
The only way to beat him is play fantastic, because he don't have no mistakes on his game. He can attack very well, he can defend very well, so he's a really complete guy.
Federer and Nadal, two of the great athletes the sport's ever seen.